Welcome to Subramani. I'm going to take a very old quotation of Warren Buffett and talk a little about it. I'm sure many people have spoken about this. So, to create wealth, you should not lose money. And remember rule number one, right? Two rules in creating wealth. One, do not lose money. And second, remember rule number one. Now, it is very shallow to interpret that this means Mr. Buffett has never made losses. That's not true, right? Obviously he's made losses. Maybe he's come out of those losses very quickly. That is one thing which I've learned from some successful traders, not real necessarily investors, that if you're making if you got a bad deal, you're making losses in a transaction, come out of it fast, especially if you're not very sure as to why it is falling. Some people are leaving, the company is losing market share, or some foreign competition has come in, or something like that. Something has happened because of which it is losing market share, it's losing market cap. That's the time when you should sit back and think as to maybe something is wrong which I didn't see, therefore I should come out. So coming out of your losses quickly is one thing which I've learned, which is again not necessarily from Buffett but from other traders rather than investors. Now, if you see the markets, there are various ways how people can earn money. I'm first of all saying how Sachin Tendulkar has created wealth, how a Virat Kohli has created wealth, how a Kapil Dev has created wealth, how Mukesh Ambani has created wealth is very, very different, right? All people have had some method of creating wealth, but the approaches are very different. One person did it with his business. Three people have done with cricket. There are people like Narayan Murthy who have done with education. People like Deepak Parekh, education plus an entrepreneurial attitude, even though they were in service, right? So you cannot actually copy patterns of how people have created wealth over long periods of time, right? Very difficult to. Even in investing, the style of Prashant Jain is different from a Samir Arora, from Naren Shankaran, right? Or maybe a Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Even in this four, there is only one owner, that is Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. These three are professional investors managing other people's money. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala manages his own money. So obviously Rakesh Jhunjhunwala can have a completely different approach towards creating money than these three fund managers who are working with a mandate, right? So they cannot exceed more than 5% in one company or 10% in one company. The rules, regulations, they are subject to being scrutinized by the trustee, by the board of directors, by many individual investors. Ultimately they're managing other people's money, so their approaches would be different. So I'm just saying that money making has had different approaches, even internationally. Buffett felt you need not you need not buy companies outside of US. He was very US centric. However, he invested in companies which were going out of US. Suppose he invested in, say, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola was investing abroad. IBM was investing abroad, right? So that also happened. So it is not that all his investments was America centric. It was also abroad. But if you take John Templeton, he created wealth by investing in Japan and investing in other countries, coming out at the right time. So he did some kind of market timing. He stayed very long in markets. He also knew, like Mark Mobius does, investing in countries which have almost been written off by the whole world. He enters those markets which are high risk returns. Then if you take, there are people who made money doing index business, right? Vanguard has made its wealth by advocating indexation. Peter Lynch made his money with active management. So the way people have created wealth has been very different, and in different areas, different times, different regions, different countries. Largely your examples are America centric as far as fund management is concerned, because not enough education or enough literature is available about how wealth has been created in India over long periods of time. Though people like Deepak Parekh, Uday Kotak, Mukesh Ambani are all good examples to give, not enough good literature is available about how they've created wealth. Now, having said that, this is how they created wealth. It's very important to know how not to lose wealth, right? That is very important. So we have seen tremendous value destruction. Look at the Ranbaxy group. They were one of the top groups. It was a very good company. Parvinder was running it very well. His children, for whatever reasons, they sold the company, and then the buyer realized that it was not such a great company after all, so that kind of wealth got destroyed. Anil Ambani, a huge amount of wealth destruction. Larsen and Toubro in its finance has destroyed a lot of wealth. Kumar Mangalam Birla Group in financial services have not done too well. Even the Tata Group has not done too well in financial services. The Tata Group and the Birla Group lost money in telecom. What happens is these people have tremendous resilience and a huge amount of net worth, which allows them to make such mistakes. However, we don't have that kind of leeway. So we have to see what to learn from the others. Like it is nice for a javelin thrower to pick up the world's best javelin throwers and keep watching their videos and copying. It's good for maybe Virat Kohli to see tons of footages of how Sachin bats or how Viv Richards bats or any of the great batsmen, to see how they batted and how they preserved their wickets and how they scored runs, maybe. But in financial services, especially in investing, seeing patterns is very difficult because each person has a different pattern. However, one thing is certain: how they all, having created the wealth, it is very important that you should know how to preserve the wealth. For example, it is learning to, like I said, the first rule is do not lose money, and second is remember rule number 1. To how do you, what is the pattern that you see as to how people lose money? So whether it is a retail investor or whether it is a very big institutional investor, we do somewhat similar things. For example, Anil Ambani had a high market cap when his finance, Reliance Capital, was doing well. He got the Reliance Telecom on his platter, right? So these 2-3 companies, and he was also planning some retail forays. So people copied him. The Kumar Mangalam Birla Group didn't do well after copying him. The Larsen and Toubro didn't do well copying him, right? But there was one Bajaj Finserv which did very well. So those patterns are not visible, but if you see, there must have been some kind of a chasing performance which happened. Let's come to individual investors. How do we lose money? Yes, we look at patterns and we try to copy patterns. It's very difficult. It is really very difficult. Just because your neighbor made money in Infosys, it does not mean you will make money in Infosys. And also, if you lost money in, say, Infosys, it does not mean you have to make profit out of Infosys alone. You can make money out of out of Bajaj Finserv, for all I care, right? So you have to earn money. Yes, you will lose money. So remember that. So chasing performance is one thing. Looking for the best hot fund manager is the second one. Not understanding the process of the fund manager and getting out at wrong times is the third one. There are times when a fund manager can look very good, but if he's got a long-term track record, you can be sure that he will come back or she will come back to give good performance. Not understanding that is another big problem of how people can lose money. Then not understanding market cycles and still trying to play them, right? So let's say you were lucky that you bought sugar share at 300, it went to 500, and then when it went to 500 you sold, and luckily for you it came down to 425 or 430. You thought you were very smart, you bought it back, and then you saw it keeping on coming down to 110 or 150. It's simply because you did not understand the sugar cycle. You were lucky to get in halfway stage or somewhere in the cycle, then it went to the peak, you sold, and then you bought it back too early, right? So some missing out on these cycles. If you don't know how to handle these cycles, buy sugar share and just keep it permanently. It's perfectly all right. But if you want to play the cycle, you should know the cycle. So right now we have seen the metal cycle. Then somebody will tell you, oh, it's a super cycle. You don't. So if you don't understand, stick to an index fund. Get an investment advisor. If you want to invest, you're much better off getting a mentor or a financial advisor with whom you can at least discuss. At this stage, and with 40 plus years of experience, I still have to talk to my broker before I can buy. I'm not the ideal candidate for click and buy stuff. Even if I do a click and buy, I have to talk to somebody before I buy. I need that support, right? Don't ignore market cycles. Then of course the old one, the getting emotions to decide. If you're sitting at home, you're playing with your daughter, when an insurance salesman comes and says, sir, you must have a child plan, great, but you don't need a child insurance, maybe you need a child mutual fund plan, right? So knowing the difference between the two, again a wealth destruction thing. Buying insurance thinking you're investing, buying investments thinking you're insuring, right? Don't combine the two, it's very difficult. Keep them separate, it still makes sense. Forget the 10% tax, 20% tax. Tax is the last thing that you should worry about in an investment, especially if you're a 20-30 year investor. How do I know in 2042 what rate of tax I will pay? Will I pay capital gains tax? Will I pay mark to market tax? Will I pay wealth tax? Will my daughter pay estate duty when I die? None of this is known, because I mean my death may be 20 years away or maybe 30 years away, I don't know, right? So don't plan for all that, but don't destruct value by doing too many transactions and paying tax, right? So I'm contradicting myself. So in trading, worry about tax impact. In investing, don't worry about tax impact, right? As simple as that. Understanding what you can't understand is very important. So if somebody comes and tells me this investment in this country, you can already do an LRS and you can invest, I don't get into it. I don't need to. I can invest abroad through mutual funds. That's good enough for me. I know what are the inheritance laws in India. I know how it will get transferred. That's very important. I don't need to go beyond what I can understand, right? Then again worrying about, oh my god, I missed out on so many things, that fear of missing out. Convert it into the pleasure of missing out. Like for example, RBI has not allowed the Indians to invest last 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months, and that has helped because the market has been falling there. If you had done an SIP, you would have averaged, but still it's lower. So if today RBI opens that investment, you're still getting units, and you have been saved the most dramatic fall in the US markets, right? So sometimes it is luck, sometimes it is just providence that God saved you, right? So this is all these things will happen, but be able to understand that the role of luck. Don't think everything is your own making, and not understanding the margin of safety. It's one of the best ways of reducing your losses, is to say, I don't understand, but at this price I think Coal India is good, at this price I think NTPC is good, at this price I think IRCTC is overpriced, at this price I think IRCTC is a good price. I'm just giving you PSU examples. Same thing is true in with private sector examples. So I'm just saying, see ways in which you can protect your wealth. Be a Rahul Dravid once you have a track record to protect. When you have nothing, you can be reckless, but when you already have a track record and you've created wealth, capital preservation is a must. Leaving balls outside the off stump is more important than hitting 4s and 6s from the first ball. Thank you.